Namaste. This is Yoga Therapy Podcast, and I'm your host, Shira Khan, yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and Ayurvedic wellness educator. In these conversations with experts in the field of yoga therapy, you'll find out what it is and how it can help you and your loved ones to reclaim well-being. We'll touch on physical as well as mental health, physiology, emotions, women's health, spiritual well-being, goddesses, and self-development in the fullest sense. Listening to another story can change ours, so thank you for showing up, and let's begin this journey together. Yeah, okay, so hello everyone, we're here today with Joy Ravelli. She is a wonderful woman who lives in where? California?
Yes, San Francisco, California.
San Francisco. Okay. She's a certified YT. Also, you have a certificate or diploma in health sciences, I read on your bio.
Yes, I studied health education and health science, but I dropped out of college to run the fitness center at that college and work for my professor who also ran the health education for Cigna HMO, and I just started doing entrepreneur.
Wow, yeah, I read that on your, I think on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh, she's amazing. You're a rebel.
I just enjoy work for work's sake. I think I've always enjoyed just being out there and actually doing things and learning that way through experience. And I'm really not a good student, actually. I love teaching and I love engaging students, but it's difficult for me to be engaged with a lot of
teachers.
Yeah, if I find a good teacher, I'm so thankful, and I've had really wonderful teachers, but I do have attention deficit. Okay. And it's difficult for me to be a good student, to be honest.
Well, you're being honest, at least. That's good. Yeah, I love being a student, but now I've been teaching for about 13 years. I also love teaching. It's totally different. But yeah. Okay, so
I learned through teaching, and I learned through experience, and I feel like I'm a student of life. You know, I really enjoy learning through experience. And that's how I teach too. I love giving people opportunities to experience things and discover them for themselves, and then discuss what's
come up,
what their particular view is that they've come to from that experience.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So I didn't finish my introduction because I'm kind of stumbling over my words here, but Joy has her own yoga therapy certification program where she's taught hundreds of people, I thought you said. Yeah.
I have, I've been teaching people to become yoga teachers since 1999.
Wow.
And before that, I taught people to become personal trainers and fitness instructors. So I have always enjoyed teaching teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So welcome. Thank you for being on. And I'm sorry if the internet's terrible. Yeah. So let us know about your story. How did you get to yoga? When did it become yoga therapy? And yeah.
Well, thanks for finding me and having me on your podcast. I really am enjoying being here, and it's just a really nice diversion in my day, being able to meet you and talk to you and share some of these things. It's been very isolating, of course, for a lot of us. So it's nice to meet new people this way.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've been practicing yoga my whole life, truly. I've always been a nature kid, lived on a lake. You know, we always were swimming or being in the woods. Even though it was a city, we'd find the nature and always moving. And I've always enjoyed watching wild animals, whether it's a little bug or a frog or, fish. Just loved being with wild animals my whole life. So when I started to be exposed to yoga was in my teens, and also martial arts. And then I started to realize, oh, these experiences have names, meditation. And a lot of the yoga poses my sister and I did naturally. I think the human body, little kids just go into those shapes naturally. Yeah. So it was very comfortable and natural to discover yoga. And my first two yoga teachers were both older women, and they really embraced authentic movement and being content with where your body is and having fun with it, and really enjoying your body. And that was different than a lot of the competitive, I wasn't really playing competitive sports, but I did cheerleading and martial arts and strength training. And I really loved yoga because it wasn't that. So that's the kind of yoga that I like, where people have an opportunity to really drop in and get to enjoy the practice instead of it being so militant or exact as far as the physical practice goes. So yeah, that's how I got into yoga. And then it just slowly became everything I did, from, I guess, all through the 90s. I did Pilates also, but then yoga just became everything.
When was this? When did you start with yoga? How old were you?
When I started teaching yoga?
No, when you started practicing.
Well, like I said, I feel like I've done it my whole life.
Okay.
I guess, like, officially feeling like I was practicing this thing called yoga, I was probably 16.
Oh, wow. Young as well.
Yeah. My mom stuck me in a finishing school because I was wearing concert t-shirts and the same jeans all day, every day. That's where I found a yoga class. And then I started teaching that yoga class. It was
really quick.
Yeah. I started teaching movement when I was about 17.
Wow.
So I've been doing that my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't the body wonderful? It's only the last few years that I'm really like, I just love using my body. And it doesn't matter if it's riding my bike or running or walking or yoga. It's just, it's so lovely to be embodied. Yeah.
I agree, especially being out in nature. And it's really fascinating to have this body that can be your hobby, that can be what you do wherever you go.
Yeah, but also, like today, for example, I was walking in the forest, and the last few weeks, I just need to have music on to keep my spirits up. And then, so I'm singing fully, and sometimes I'll just stand there and start dancing, and people look at me like there's something wrong with me, or like, why are you disturbing my peace? And it's like, but that's what we're made for. And this is, if you do that too, you'd feel really good. Not that I say that, but that's what I'm thinking. And that's maybe why you're so frustrated, because you're just not allowing yourself to that freedom. Yeah.
I love that. I love, living in San Francisco, you do see people just grooving down the street.
Oh, really?
Moving their own way. Sometimes it's under the influence of drugs. But a lot of times I feel like it is just people enjoying themselves, or at the beach. I live near the ocean, and you see people dancing in the waves, and it's just
wow.
in, and it is contagious. I think to see people moving freely. It's what everybody loves about having children around, when they're just free and uninhibited. I really love teaching authentic movement and dance with the yoga, giving people a lot of open cues that they can interpret their own way for movement.
I'm trying to do that, because I've found dancing so empowering the last few years, like regulating my hormones. I've been going through perimenopause and everything's shifting. And if I just keep my levels up by dancing during the day, then I cruise through my life. But if I don't, it goes down. And then I'm like, how can I introduce this into a class? So I'd love you to tell me more about that in a bit, but I'd also like you to share with us how did it get to yoga therapy? When did this become a fascination for you?
It actually was not a fascination for me.
Oh.
I personally don't like the word therapy.
That's why I couldn't find it on your website.
I prefer, for me, I feel like I am a teacher and I'm a coach and I'm a mentor. I feel like I share practices with people as a way of even being in friendship. But the word therapy to me has always felt like I'm fixing someone or I'm healing someone. And I've adopted the word because you have to, that's what it's being called. But it took me a while to wrap my brain and heart around the word yoga therapy. I do like holistic yoga coaching, feels better to me, or just being a teacher, a holistic yoga teacher. But I was turned on to the word yoga therapy probably in 2002. I think I went to one of the first IAYT conferences with a friend that was a therapist and had been exposed to it. She lived in California. I lived in Massachusetts at the time. So we came out to California and, went to it was one of the first IAYT conferences. They had chanting and it was a really great time. Actually, that first conference I thought was the most fun one I've been to.
Because everyone was still trying things out and not trying to be professional, maybe.
Well, right. The word professional, there you go. I think the chanting and the joy of yoga, and that's my name, is so important to maintain, right? To be able to roll on the floor, to be able to be comfortable. And so that is what I strive to maintain in yoga therapy. So that was my first exposure to it. And then I reluctantly started using that term to describe our 300-hour training, because I realized what yoga therapy is. I mean, the definition of yoga therapy is that you're individualizing it, that you're personalizing the practice, and that you're getting to know your client, your student, so that you can create a progressive program for them designed specifically for them, for their goals and desires and needs. And that is a lot like personal training, which is what my background is. So when I realized the definition that they're working with for yoga therapy, the definition feels very comfortable to me. So really, I think I was already doing it, and I actually know that all yoga is therapeutic. I don't think there's a divide. I don't think a line in the sand had to be made. I think there's levels of education that you can embark upon. And of course, being a yoga teacher, I think is a beautiful thing. And I don't think that necessarily means less than. I think it's...
No, but it's just, I do think it's important. I also don't agree with the hour thing, but there should be a distinction. Like me, I was on the internet and I saw a job for a yoga teacher trainer. I was like, oh, interesting. And so I went to apply, but then I wanted to find out more about these people who were offering this job. And it would only be 36 hours that I'd be teaching someone. And then this someone would have a yoga teacher training certificate. And I was like, it's 200 hours. So I wrote them a big message, like 200 hours is not even enough. You can't promise people who have never done yoga that within 36 hours, they can be a teacher. This just destroys our profession. Okay, I don't want to call it a profession, but it is a profession. And we should have some minimum, because we can do damage. I agree, all yoga is healing, but only taught by a teacher who has at least a few years of their own self-practice and has been taught by a teacher who has more experience than them. It's that makes me upset.
Yes, I do agree. And I think that people will come to realize what those credentials mean and what that experience means and what that education means. And of course, I've worked so hard to have a professional yoga therapy school. I've put so much time and energy and effort into becoming an accredited school and following the rules of the Yoga Alliance and, jumping through all the hoops. And I do wholeheartedly believe in accreditation and think that we need that that umbrella and that organization to help us all and to help consumers understand the quality of certifications. So I definitely agree with that. And I do think that all yoga is healing. And I do think that I am glad that the Yoga Alliance has opened the door for yoga teachers to say what they're doing is healing. And
in that sense,
I think singing is healing. I think dancing is healing.
Yes.
I think, so
talking with someone else is healing.
Yeah. So I feel like just use the, language is important. And I think having a certification, having the accreditation, an educated consumer will appreciate that. And you're always going to have uneducated consumers, right? That are maybe going to fall for that program like you're describing. And there's not much to do about that.
No, but it just upsets me because I've had students who've come and they're afraid to go to another teaching class because they've had such an experience with a teacher who isn't qualified, because the body is really complex. And then you have the mind that's really complex, and then you have physiology, which is really complex. And we're trying to work with all those things under one umbrella.
Well, I think it's important for each individual to ask the professional that they're with what their credentials are and what their education is. And then I think there's responsibility for yoga studios, of course. And then there's responsibility for these accreditation programs and these certified schools. So I think we're getting there. You can go to Thailand and get a massage on the beach. It's up to you to ask, who is this person? Is it therapeutic Thai yoga body work, or is it just
fun touch?
Right. Yeah. And that's been going on for many thousands of years in India, where there are gurus walking around promising things. And you're going to attract the educated consumer if you're an educated individual and you can articulate your experience and your knowledge. And I think people appreciate that and seek it out.
Yeah. Eventually. Yeah. That's true. Okay. So do you want to tell us more about the yoga therapy? Did it become important to you at some point? Did you say, okay, I really want to learn more? Or it was already obvious to you that it was more?
Well, I feel like everything that I've learned throughout my life and the teachers that I've learned from have provided the foundation of yoga therapy for me to share with others. I studied a lot of anatomy and physiology and kinesiology, a lot of the Western sciences and psychology, and then studied a lot of the philosophy with great teachers, John Featherstone and Dr. Rao and the folks at Harvard University. And I've loved my Buddhist teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron, and I've had the opportunity to sit at their feet. And so I feel like all of this has been gifted to me, that I've had the experiences that I've had to learn all of these things. And that is what became for me our yoga therapy school, and then called in other teachers. Like I said, I am really great at surrounding myself with people that know more than I do and about different things. So we have a really phenomenal staff of teachers that's evergreen and always changing. So yeah, yoga therapy, I think it being holistic, 5 kosha, really pulls on all the different branches of yoga, that it's a beautiful umbrella for the whole practice, the whole beautiful system of yoga, really.
Mm. Yeah. And what do you find that is so fundamental of this whole system of yoga that is so different from the Western way of understanding healing or treatment?
Well, I think it's interesting how this long COVID is turning out to be, that people are experiencing so many different symptoms with this long COVID disease, and that healthcare professionals actually have to have conversation and get to know each individual person and really listen and really strive to understand and respect what the person is telling them. And that is what yoga therapy is. It is actually tuning in and being with co-consciousness with this individual and listening and creating a therapeutic alliance. And ultimately, yoga therapy is about the Purusha. That's why I named my school Purusha Yoga. It's about the true self. And then I think it goes out from there naturally to the community, to be in service. So, for me, the heart of yoga therapy is the heart, is the center, is the true self. And I think starting there and always resting there and having that guide the practices, for me, is the fundamental, that's my North Star.
Yeah.
Is letting it really be client-led. And I really enjoy that. I just enjoy being on that path with an individual and seeing where it's going to go. We do a lot of guided journeys and then harvest information from that experience. And I love tying in expressive art and journaling and staying in that meditative state with the practices and the gaining insights from that inquiry.
Yeah. Oh, it's a really great description. I like that. And I love what you said about the COVID. I didn't see that, but yes, it's good in that sense that the medical world is being forced to look more deeply. But yeah, I don't think everyone's doing that though. The mainstream is still not. It's trying to attack it with one single, one size fits all prescription. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, allopathic medicine is wonderful when it's utilized properly, right? And but that one pill fits all
doesn't work.
Is the opposite of yoga therapy.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
I mean, you can use yoga for depression, yoga for anxiety, yoga for heart disease, yoga for some of these long COVID symptoms. And I think people will always seek something out in that regard or in that way. But ultimately, it is about helping the person navigate their own journey of finding their true selves, and those practices that are appropriate for that individual are going to be entirely different than what's appropriate for another person
with the same symptoms. Yeah. I can't wait till everyone figures that out. I'm sort of like very impatient right now. It's like, wake up, people, please. Yeah.
Well, here we are. I mean, that's our part in the system. You know, I think yoga therapists will continue to become an integral, important, vital part of an integrative health
system.
And, like you were saying before, there is so much knowledge there. I mean, we could have 8,000 hours of training. There's so much that can fit under this umbrella of yoga therapy because, like you said, you're looking at physical practices, the thoughts and the mental patterns,
emotions, psych, physiology, hormones. It's so complex.
And then there's all the energy work, all the journey of the energy, and then tapping into your intellect and your wisdom and getting closer to what you know,
your values,
right,
your purpose, which we're going to talk about. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, like, I work with a lot of people who have very complex trauma and basically got very stuck. And you see that one of the main keys is just feeling they don't have a purpose. If they would feel they had something to offer or to serve to the world we are part of, that is so vital to their health, mental, physical, everything. Yeah. So Joy's going to tell us, because I saw this and you wrote this in the email, that you you want to help people create a meaningful career in times of change and chaos. Yeah. So I think that's a good segue.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually what we were just talking about too, about trauma, is I know that our wounds can become our wisdom, and then that wisdom can become who we are in the world and how we serve others. And my son died at the age of 20. He took his life. And
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Out of that experience of extreme grief and numbness and complete incapacitation, I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't think I could live. And actually somebody called me and said, can you teach me how to teach yoga? And it was this troubled 20-year-old. Wow. And I realized I can do that. Like, that's something I can do and I enjoy doing. And maybe I would just meet with this young girl that was lost and needed a path. And I say that because I think each one of us needs to find that. That's what we're here for. That's what the soul is here to do, is to be curious and to find enjoyment in this life, to find purpose. And I do think that those wounds that people are being stuck from can actually be the inspiration for their lives to serve others. So I believe that each person who has those unique experiences, that is my starting point with people, is, what has popped your bubble? What has, it's like the knife to the heart is the same as your deepest inspiration, your deepest joy in life. And I think from that point, we can find purpose. For each one of us, that's different, just like we were saying about yoga therapy. So I think with the career coaching, using yoga therapy, using these yoga practices, it's very natural to utilize these practices and this philosophy in that way to find purpose. So yeah, starting with the cards you were dealt, you could think of as karma, and then dharma being your truth. What do you do with those cards you were dealt? What do you do with those experiences? And it's hard work.
Yes, it's the hardest work, I think, because it's painful, but also there's an aspect of responsibility. Like when we take responsibility for our life, no matter what mess we are in, we also have power to change that. And like you said, the other side of the pain is also your beauty, your gift. Yeah. But thank you for sharing. I just want to say that's very hard. I lost also my uncle. He suicided when I was 10, just 10 days before my birthday. So life was always a big question, like, why should I celebrate when someone could just take their life? It was always life and death for me. And that made me search very early on for answers. Yeah.
That's often the shamanic path, is the healers are the most wounded in some way. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could help the people in this world, in these cultures that are wounded, to become
Healers.
the healing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Healing wise ones. But it is a journey, and the journey of feeling the feels, all the feels, healing all the feels, as one of my students that is also my teacher likes to say, feeling all the feels is hard work. So being a witness to that is, I think, a good first step, is being in a place where you can feel safe to share your story and feel all the feels. And I think that's where those authentic practices come in, and also chanting and mantra and movement and sound and stamping your feet and crawling on the floor and wrapping up in a blanket and having cry and share all that and be witnessed. I think is really important to move through trauma.
I wanted to ask you, how important is that aspect, that someone is there with you while you go through the struggle and the feeling and the expression, to be seen and heard?
I don't think it's all of it. I think a lot of it can happen privately as well. And I think that's important, to carry on the practices in your own life. And like you're saying, being in the woods and listening to music and having your own experience, you don't necessarily need a witness. But I think for some of it, to have a witness is phenomenal, because it's validating. And we are, we're a family. We're all connected. And to be seen and to have somebody see our pain and our suffering and our joys and our sorrows, I think it is a big part of healing. But it's scary to be vulnerable like that.
Yeah, I think what's really important is that we can feel that that person is still emotionally connected, even though we are struggling. If we haven't experienced that in our childhood or anywhere, that's why it's so painful to hold that experience on our own or in vulnerability, because we have never had that example. Or
and then I think if people are showing up that way, to give them privacy in the session is nice, whether it's a blanket over your head, or you can even turn the camera off if you're online and then come back and share how the experience was. It doesn't have to be direct witnessing. It can be sharing after an experience as well. Or, letting the person have these practices at home and they can journal about it or do some artwork and then share later. There was a research of veterans with PTSD, and I've worked a lot with veterans with the VA hospital here in San Francisco. We've done some really phenomenal yoga therapy programs. And there's a lot of research that shows that what those veterans found the most healing was actually the community aspect, the fire time, the fire circle at the end of the day. And, children say that, and my clients say that too. I'm doing these group yoga therapy sessions online, which is something I wanted to share with you about, how do I get to do these cool practices, these more subtle practices in these vinyasa classes that people expect. How can you slip in something more interesting? I find that when you have a theme and you put a group together that has the same goals, desires, obstacles, whatever it may be, and you call it group yoga therapy, or just even, group yoga, but it's in a more personalized way, that you can then do these practices, like just getting people out of the yoga studio vinyasa.
Oh, I don't do yoga studio vinyasa. I do somatic work, but I was thinking, how do I mix dance into it? That I find still a challenge. Dance. But I would like to move their bodies more, but most bodies are so sedentary. I'm a little afraid, even my body that's quite flexible and mobile, I can sometimes do some dance moves in my sequences, and then the next day or the next week I'll have a sore back. So I'm not sure if I should be doing it with them until I've tested out. That's what I mean.
I've studied a lot of different authentic movement practices, and one powerful teacher that I've had is Anna Halprin, who just passed away recently at 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
And that's that style of teaching authentic movement, and really doing a really thorough warm-up. I mean, a very thorough warm-up is very important, I think.
Yeah.
Whether it's a long walking warm-up with some, so you do have to know the body. You can't just jump into this, and then give people an opportunity to really connect their mind to their body, to their breath, so it's all that 5 kosha experience. And then when we're really practicing yoga, ultimately, if we were really practicing yoga, no harm would ever be done. But we're human beings, and we get excited.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good tip. Yeah, but I do the warming up, but you're right. Yeah, we get excited. And that's how we learn. You make the mistake and then you adapt.
If you move your body, you're going to get injured.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's not a very motivating one.
I mean, that's not every time, but at some point in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that we get out of this life without injury.
No, that's true.
Whether it's mental, emotional, physical. I mean, life is hard, and get used to it, right? That's
get used to it. Yeah, see the good. You know what I loved about, I think it's from the Prophet, from Khalil Gibran. He says,
of my favorite authors.
Yeah, me too. Since I was young, I've always read that book. But where he says that the more you suffer, the more you're hollowed out, and therefore the more joy you can contain and beauty of life. No? Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that quote of Khalil Gibran. I don't know that one. I'm going to go back and find
You'll have to go back. I think it's something about love and the sword, and yeah.
I give that book to so many people, and whenever I see it at a Goodwill or a thrift store, I pick it up.
Me too.
Just pass it on. So wonderful. Khalil Gibran, the 4 agreements, all these.
I don't know them 4 agreements.
Oh, that's a phenomenal book too. It's
okay. I'll write it down. These threads of wisdom is such a beautiful part of yoga, to be able to share stories and share wisdom. And I really do believe that ultimately yoga is connection. That's what the word means, to yoga. So we can pull from many world traditions too, and share philosophies from other great cultures,
teachers and cultures.
I think that's what I love also about Hinduism. We'll just bring Jesus along, and Muhammad and Moses. Everyone's part of the family. It's so great. Okay, so tell us about purpose, dharma, vocation, and staying on track, and how to find inspiration.
Well, I loved what you just said about how you find inspiration with music and being in the forest. And for me, that is also very inspiring, to be in nature. It's so difficult these days for so many, being isolated and being within these walls. When they were rounding up the indigenous people of America and putting them into boxes, putting them into buildings, there were so many that died because they couldn't be outside. Our natural places outside. And I think that's been a blessing of the pandemic, is to be able to practice outside. We're practicing in the park now. And those yoga studios that I owned and operated were kind of slowly killing me, because I wasn't outside as much. So for me, helping people get back to nature in what is meaningful for them, I think you'll always find inspiration there. And I think, that these cycles of behavior, it's like a figure 8. So when you're on one circle over here in the figure 8, maybe you don't get out of bed, you feel lazy, and then, you don't eat a healthy breakfast, and then you drink too much coffee, and then you're watching Netflix at 12 in the afternoon, and then
Sounds terrible.
it's a good time for some chocolate. And then, you're just laying around on the
Oh
couch.
my God, the guilt.
But it's just one little step over to the other circle, right? So maybe you open a window, or you have a big glass of water, or, you call a friend, or you put on music, and then all of a sudden you're on this circle. Those things start to lead you forward.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like that. We're naturally going to cross over to the dark side. But you can
Hopefully not every day.
Not every day.
Like torture.
Just, the Bhagavad Gita says every habit, no matter how small, moves you forward. And that can, when I was in the throes of grief, I learned from very many wise teachers that the best thing for grief, for really terrible grief like what I was experiencing, is to drink a ton of water and to get a lot of rest. And wow. I think, again, it's so important to meet ourselves where we are and be there first. Because when I was in that terrible grief state, my mom sent me a big wooden plaque from the Keys, where she lives in Florida. So all the bright pink and turquoise colors to hang on the wall, and it said live, laugh, love.
Which is not what you want to do at that moment.
If she was nearby, I wanted to crack that over her head.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Sometimes mothers have no idea, do they? It's like they know how to make it worse.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I've learned from this to meet ourselves where they are, and meet, and to teach people to be kind to themselves, to have that compassion for ourselves. So yeah, in terms of being inspired, that's what comes to mind. And yeah, staying on track. Well, I think one of the greatest teachers of staying on track that I've ever heard is actually some of the Beatles members, where they say every day do something artistic, every day, do something that you have a discipline around.
Yeah, writers say the same.
Right.
Writers also every day sit down and write. Doesn't matter if something comes out or not, just make the habit. Yeah.
Yes. And, the Ayurveda threads of our philosophy, I think, are so strong on daily ritual.
Yeah.
So helping people come up with, this was huge to me when I realized I could tune into understanding what time of day is best for what activity. So I think a lot of us, again, have never been exposed to that question. When does your brain work the best for, critical thinking? When do you feel artistic? When do you need to relax and have some downtime? And that can help you to
build up. Yeah. Also, what I've discovered since perimenopause is working with my menstruation. Also, that when you're menstruating, it's like winter. And so that would be the time to rest more. And if you have to work, then work on things that are getting rid of and letting go of, or editing or clearing out. And then as you move towards your ovulation, you've got that week of blooming spring where you're more excited and you start all these new ideas and projects. And then you're in the summer and you go into meeting people and going out into the world and shining your light. And then you come into the autumn, and therefore, again, starting to think about ending the projects, whatever you've started. That's a good way to work too. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. So you have the daily ritual, and then, as you just described, so
a monthly one,
the monthly ritual, and then the seasonal ritual. Yeah, that goes back to what we were saying about being in nature. I mean, that's the nature of our cycles. Yeah. I have my 17-year-old daughter home today with her cycle.
So it's fun.
Yeah, just sometimes we just need a day off from school or work.
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
order,
definitely.
in order to be in that winter season, like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Since I figured that out, but also, yeah, I tell clients and students, left nostril, if that one's open, then do creative stuff. Right nostril, if that one's open, then you're more into organizing and getting things done. That
And
also helps people.
the education that you have, right? So this is not there's so much there.
There's immense
That is yoga
amounts.
therapy. There are
Yeah.
so many practices, and it's so rich with beautiful ways to be in our life.
Yeah.
It's not just a treatment.
No, it's
the
life. Yeah.
It's not a pill. It's not a remedy. It's actually how to navigate your life. So whether it's a career that you're looking or seeking help with, or a relationship, or your physical well-being, you know, it can be any of those. Whatever goals, desires, imbalances, whatever you come with, I feel yoga therapy can help you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also important, and this, I think it's in the Bhagavad Gita or the Yoga Sutras, I can't remember. No, the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali, where he says that to leave one, what you were just talking about, those cycles, to leave from one habit, which is not so positive, you need another habit. You can't just go from doing crappy things to having a wonderful life. You need to first have habits that create that wonderful life and do them long enough so that when you have a stressful moment, you can fall back on that habit or that pattern.
Yes.
That practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. And just getting that kriya, that essential practice for each human being, you know, helping people develop their kriya.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you call a kriya.
Yeah, the personal essential practice.
Okay.
I feel like most people know that, you know, if you ask someone, what's the most detrimental habit that you engage in? What is the habit that is the most detrimental to your well-being? I've never met anyone that can't answer that question.
That's a good question. I've never asked that question.
Great question. You know, I feel like yoga therapy is all about great questions.
Yes, exactly.
And then the other question is, you know, what is the most essential practice for you? What is the healthiest practice that you have, that you know, if you do this one thing every day, you will feel 100% better? And everyone knows that practice too. So that's, like you said, a good starting point, right? So you have detrimental practice. Can you find the practice? You know, in Ayurveda, it's said, ideally, we're finding the practices that are beneficial and feel good.
Yeah.
That's like the sweet spot.
That's
but in the forest.
Yeah. Even Patanjali said it, that the pattern or the habit that you want to create, it can be even to something that you're very attracted to, just because if that's easy for the mind to move towards. So even if that is an addiction, it's a positive one at least. And I think that's what yoga was for me for a long time. It was just an addiction, but it was a positive one, so it didn't matter. Yeah. But then I had to do without. For my yoga therapy training, I had to figure out what my practice was. And at first I created this very what do you call that, overachieving kind of practice that had all the elements and all the levels and layers and koshas. But then I realized I actually just had to sit with my guilt. I had to not do any kind of yoga and just sit with myself and feel guilty and be okay with myself not doing anything. That was the practice.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guilt only comes when you're taking care of yourself.
What do you mean? Hang on. I don't get that. I still probably don't do that.
Well, I think especially women, in my experience, women experience more guilt than men.
Yes. Yeah.
It's down to us through these traditions, I think, of whether
patriarchy.
Judaism or Christianity, Islam, like the big three have all guilt tied in.
And shame.
Yes, conveniently located right within the system for you.
Can I just say one thing? I just want to interject. In Dutch, we call the pubic bone, we call it the shame bone.
Wow.
And the sacrum, we call the holy bone. It's very strange. It's so contradictory. So we have on one side, we have the holy bone, and then we have the shame bone. It's crazy. And I keep saying this to my students, especially the older ladies, and they find it so funny. They're like, God, we've even put it in our language, in our body. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that. That is very interesting. Well, that's a whole trip you could go down.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, you were saying these three, the patriarchal.
I was saying that, we have this idea of what we can do as mothers, as caretakers, as teachers, as nurses, whatever role you have in this world, you have this idea of what you are in the world and what you should be able to do. And they're usually based on an unrealistic model, right? It's ego. It's a sneaky ego, but it's still ego. And then the reality is you come up short, and then that's your truth. That's your truth. That's your true self. But when you come up short and you didn't do this grand thing that you thought you should be able to do, you feel guilty. But really, you're acknowledging yourself. You're taking care of yourself. And that's exactly what you just described. You had this idea of what you're supposed to do, and it had all the 5 koshas, and it had every aspect of yoga therapy. The reality was the true self was saying, what I just need to relax, man. Like,
for once in your 44 years.
Yes. So that's why I say guilt only comes when you're taking care of yourself. So if you pay attention to when guilt comes, and of course, for some, the families are good at giving us the guilt ticket too, right? The ticket to the guilt train. I love the visualization of actually imagining the person giving you a ticket to a guilt trip. And you choose to not take the ticket. And you can just shift the conversation, whether it's with that maternal figure or that sister or whoever it is that tends to give you that guilt trip. You just visualize that ticket being given to you as they're saying
those things.
And then you shift it because you're saying no to that, and it shifts, and then the person stops and they talk about something else more pleasant. Well,
I've done it in real with my mother. We've had those confrontations. First it was quite head on, and then I realized I could just do it more subtly. I didn't have to be so brutal about it. And then she understood. She didn't like it, but then with a few months in between, it was like we were both healed from that pattern. It's very nice.
And then you can laugh and be creative and share your lives
without that. Yes, exactly. Oh, thank you, Joy. Is there anything else you want to say? I don't know if I've asked all my questions, but I feel like we've already talked quite a while.
No, I loved the conversation. I really appreciated the time to drop in with some new friend. It's really a gift. So thanks so much for reaching out to me.
Me too. I'm really happy we did this. I
hope we'll get to see each other sometime.
Me too. I really hope so.
Not online.
No. I know what you mean.
Maybe at an IAYT conference or something when things.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I would love that. If you're ever in the Netherlands, you are most welcome to stay with me.
Thank you. Here, if you're ever in San Francisco, you have a place here to stay as well. I have
lovely.
I have a little extra room.
Okay. I don't have a lot of room, but we can share my bed.
can just crash on the floor, whatever. Having a friend there to visit while you're there is so nice.
Yeah, exactly. And do you want to say anything else? I'm just reading what I've written. Oh, yes. No, I don't think that's relevant. No, I don't have any more questions, but is there anything else you would like to leave listeners with? Anything you feel we haven't touched on or that's relevant to today?
Well, it might be nice to just share an Om.
Yes,
Would you like to do that?
Definitely.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Do you want to lead the Om or do you want me to lead the Om?
I would love you to lead the Om.
Okay. All right. So let's just, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, find a nice, comfortable place to sit and relax your body. And notice once you relax your body, how easy it is to take a nice big breath in and out. And let's celebrate being alive and share this Om also with anyone else that can use a spark. Feeling the sound of ah down deep in the gut, the sound of ooh in your heart center, the sound of in your third eye, and silence all around. Take a deep breath in. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste, namaste, Shira. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom and your wonderful presence. And you are a joy to be with.
Thank you. You're a pleasure to be with too, Shira. I really enjoyed the connection. Thanks so much. It's been a gift.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Bye, listeners. Thanks for being with us to the end of this lovely conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for staying to the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I really love doing these talks with these amazing people. And if you want to know more, just take a look in the show notes. There's plenty of links and ways to connect with either the guest or myself. If you want to work with us or find out more about us, just check out the information in the show notes. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend or week, and you'll be hearing from me next week. Bye.